Hi, I'm Chris Gadd.
That's Mr. Gat to you.
This video is designed to provide you with an overview of the essential building blocks that you need to include in order to produce a strong argument. Now, when I say argument, I'm not talking about a fight, like my parents are having an argument. In this context, an argument refers to the presentation of a point of view with the aim of convincing other people to agree with it. I often find that when people present an argument, they use just one approach, one type of content, and that doesn't make your argument robust. In order to produce a strong argument, you need to employ a whole variety of strategies.
Now, this video isn't about specific persuasive techniques. There's literally dozens of them. No, this video is about the fundamental building blocks that you need to use to construct a strong argument.
I use the idea of building blocks because I think it's a good way to illustrate how we approach arguments. So here's some blocks that I stole from my kid's toy box. Any argument needs to be deliberately constructed in order for it to be effective. If you consider this block tower, if I don't use all of the blocks, it won't be as tall. If I don't arrange them and balance them appropriately, it won't be as strong. Just as a building is constructed, we need to construct arguments that have solid foundations and that are well supported. In order to do that, we usually include 7 things, 7 building blocks of effective arguments. As I explain each one, I'll provide examples. As an issue to work with, I'll use the old favourite of English teachers everywhere: should schools have uniforms? Start with a hook. Just like a fish hook catches fish, we want something that will catch the audience's attention. We could use strong language or shocking information that will draw the audience in. For example, related to our issue, I could say, do you want students to worry about what they wear or focus on their schoolwork? By asking a rhetorical question and presenting these oversimplified opposing points, hopefully that would capture the attention of my audience. Next, we have a contention. A contention is your particular viewpoint on the issue, summed up in one sentence. Sometimes this is called your thesis statement. If an issue can be phrased as a question, then the contention is your answer. So for the issue, should schools have uniforms? Our contention could be, schools should have uniforms because they help to minimize distractions for students. Now the next 3 come in a set. They're originally identified by the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, and they have cool Greek names too: Ethos, Pathos, and Logos. Let's go through each one. Ethos is where you show that you are worth listening to. You need to demonstrate that you are credible, that you are an authority on the issue. This could be because of your experiences, your job, who you are, or by showing that you have researched to develop a broad understanding of the issue. For our example, I could say, as a teacher with over 80 years experience in the classroom, I've seen firsthand the positive effect that uniforms have on student behavior. I'm not that old. Pathos is where you appeal to your audience's emotions. To be convincing, you need to win their hearts. You could elicit sympathy, tell a personal anecdote, or charm with humor. I might tell the story of my poor cousin, who was mocked each day because of his cheap sneakers. Eventually, the teasing became so intense, he couldn't concentrate on his schoolwork, and eventually, he dropped out of school altogether. The final part of this set is Logos, which involves presenting logical reasoning. Your argument isn't going to be very strong if you don't include any hard evidence. You could refer to a study, statistics, include a quote from an expert, or anything else that provides sound support for your contention. For our example, I could refer to an article I read where a principal was quoted as saying that after introducing a uniform policy, incidents of other behavioural misconduct dropped by over 20%. To really make your argument convincing, you need to demonstrate the flaws in alternative positions. Include a rebuttal, which means you present the opposing point of view and then you shoot it down. You show why it is wrong. For example, the opposing side might say that dealing with uniform issues is a waste of teachers' time. But I could rebut that by pointing out the evidence that shows that in schools where the students wear uniforms, there is actually a reduction in other behavioural incidents. And finally, you want to drive home your argument. You want to end with a really strong point something memorable, and something that leaves your audience utterly convinced that your point of view is the right one. For our case, I could say, schools without uniforms are schools that don't allow children to learn. Give them the best chance. Give them a uniform.
For the record, I don't actually like uniforms.
So there you have it. 7 building blocks in order to construct a strong argument. Now remember, the contention is your argument summed up, so the other 6 are really there to support and elaborate your contention. Now, let's think about the order. Does the order matter? I built the tower upside down, because I layered them up. Let's flip it over. That's better. Now we can read them top to bottom. So, does the order matter? Well, it's not a hard and fast rule, but some blocks make sense in certain positions more than they would in others. For example, the hook and the drive it home. They make sense at the beginning to catch attention, and at the end to provide a strong conclusion. The contention doesn't have to come second, but it does make sense to present your main point early in your argument. For the remaining 4, ethos, pathos, logos, and the rebuttal, there you have some room to move. They really can be switched around, and in fact you'll usually include multiple examples of each in your argument. So these are quite flexible, but there is probably a natural flow if you start by establishing your credibility, then engage people emotionally, then logically, and finally rebut the opposing point of view. So following this order is a good guide, but not a rigid rule. What happens, however, if you leave out a block altogether? Well, as I said at the beginning, if you don't include these essential building blocks of an argument, your argument won't be strong. If you leave out the hook, then you don't have an engaged audience. They might not even hear your argument. No logos, and you're like a shock jock, spouting off unsubstantiated opinions. Without a rebuttal, your argument is one-sided, and it can easily be challenged by opposing opinions. If you leave out the contention, well then you're not even saying what your argument is, and so you become really ambiguous. You get the idea. Leave any one of these out, and your argument loses strength. So, when you're constructing arguments, build them strong. Include all 7 building blocks of effective arguments. I don't have a strong argument.